चक्षुरुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषण्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So today is the fourth session. Of course, we are discussing Arjuna. So Krishna comes as a peacemaker, and how does he try to influence based upon speaking about Arjuna to the Kurus. He meets with Kunti, meets with Karna. Sanjay comes to Kampilia to bring the message of Dhritarashtra, and he brings back the message of Pandavas to Dhritarashtra. The interaction between Duryodhan, Krishna and Arjuna, and of course the Bhagavad Gita. So the Virata war is over. Pandavas preparing for their future course of action. They are collecting their armies, right? The desire to have a peace does not stop them from preparation. That is the beauty of politics, right? The Pandavas had assumed nothing, even though they were insisting to have a peace to such an extent. And all the Pandavas were sitting with Sri Krishna. So they were speaking about, this is before Krishna came as a peacemaker. The Bhima, Arjun, Nakul, Sahadev, Yudhishthir, even though they went through so much of painful realities, their only one goal was to see that the war should not break. They wanted peace at all cost, but not at the cost of losing their identity completely. If not rightful kingdom, at least 5 villages. Allowing Duryodhan to be the king, but getting their 5 villages. That was the compromise they were ready for. But at the same time, they were ready for war. They were preparing. So when you sit on the table for peace, one should be ready for war also. That is what the Pandavas are teaching. And therefore, before even Krishna came as the peacemaker, the Kauravas and Pandavas, they were going around. Right? Arjuna also comes to Dwarka. Duryodhan also comes to Dwarka. They meet, the famous story of Duryodhan and Arjuna coming together in Krishna's place when the Lord was resting. Sri Krishna was resting. They had the facility to come to the place where Krishna was in his resting room. You can imagine, Duryodhan was also relative because his daughter was married to Krishna's son and Krishna's sister was married to Arjuna. So both had the rightful claim to receive support from Krishna. And that famous story where Arjuna told Sri Krishna, I want you, not your army, which is as powerful as your own self. Krishna gave the opportunity for Arjuna to choose, and Arjuna chose very clearly. There was no confusion in Arjuna's mind that I want Krishna and the resources I will manage. Again, we have to go back to the background for this. It is not simply deep devotion of Arjuna. Of course, there is a deep devotion in it. But along with that, he put all his efforts, did not see, depending on Krishna is different from burdening Krishna. Because when we study Bhagavad Gita, when we study our dharmic literature, one of the core identity of the living entity has limitless potentials to experience divinity, to experience Ishvara Tattva, to experience Krishna. And Arjuna had worked very hard. He collected all the resources. The Pandavas had such a powerful resources in regards to divine weapons, chariot, quiver, horses, flag. It's like if you compare the American army to any other army, American armies with all their sophistication, they're always 30, 25 years, ahead of any other country from the firepower. So the army number the Pandavas were collecting, but the power in regards to their own ability to create disruption in the enemy's army was so good. But still, as the royalty, they were going around collecting people. So Krishna and Arjuna and Duryodhana come there. And because Arjuna had collected so much, he did not burden Krishna. One of the problem in regards to religion, which is wrongly understood, by remembering God, we feel that all our hard labor is minimized and God will supply automatically. This is totally anti to dharmic literature. We don't find that. If you pick up Bhagavad Gita, if you pick up Mahabharata, if you pick up Ramayana, and therefore the Gita teaches this core integration of Daiva and Purushartha. Purushartha is hard labor, right? And the remaining inadequacy, because human efforts will be limited. But because human efforts are limited, doesn't mean that one does not put an effort. And Arjuna is the best example. Collected everything. That story of Arjuna approaching Indra, of course, Indra approached Krishna and Arjuna. He wanted to offer them benediction after the Khandava Prastha. Krishna told, I want Arjuna's friendship. And what did Arjuna ask from from Indra? He said, I want divine weapons. Right? When you are satisfied with the resources and you have a connection to God, it is but natural, unless you are greedy. Of course, Pandavas are dharmic, so they did not bother Krishna for asking him to provide their day-to-day necessities. Here, Arjuna wanted Krishna as he is, without any resources. When Krishna gave that option, Arjuna did not hesitate. That is the first victory of Arjuna. He is dependent on Krishna but not burdening Krishna. So Duryodhana was very happy. Oh, good, the Pandavas don't know the practicality. What will they do with Krishna who is not going to fight? So then they kept on moving to different places. So they kept on moving to different places. Sorry, I think so the Pandavas, I was telling the story, there was some mute. So Pandavas were approaching, Arjuna approached Krishna. After approaching Krishna for the resources, Arjuna chose Krishna over the army of Krishna. Because Arjuna had the resources which he has collected on his own, from the Bhagavad Gita's perspective, there is your effort and God's grace. Then the Drupada's priest, Purohit, came to Hastinapur, presenting the need of the Pandavas. And what does he do? When he comes, he does speak about all the resources Pandavas have collected and specifically focuses on Arjuna's credibility. When he glorifies Arjuna, naturally, Bhishma Dev reconfirms the greatness of Arjuna, and Karna does not like this. he cuts off. Then Bhishma Dev says, my dear Karna, you know what happened during the Viratas battle, right? During the Viratas war, it is not about how great you are on the paper. The result matters. So every time when Karna faced Arjuna, apparently Karna always seems to be, apparently higher. That's what the narrative is built around. But there is no battle where Arjuna was defeated by Karna. Single-handedly, Arjuna defeated everybody, and that is what Bhishma tried to convey this to Karna. And as Bhishma was speaking, interestingly, Dhritarashtra, what does he do? Dhritarashtra, he is the person who imagines. It's like you have a weak team, right? And you are fighting a battle with a bigger team. What is the guarantee of a small team, a club team, fighting the most powerful team and becoming victorious? There is hardly any chances, right? So Dhritarashtra knew the truth, but still he would imagine. So here he speaks the truth. He says, my dear brother, my dear son, he said, have you not heard, you have experienced, there is no history since the birth of Arjuna that he's ever been defeated. And recently we saw how Arjuna single-handedly defeated everybody and Krishna was not there. Now Krishna is going to come. So where is the chance of we defeating the Pandavas? It is impossible. Arjuna has the capacity to destroy the entire army within no time. So let us have peace with the Pandavas. But as we know, Duryodhana would not agree for this. Then Sanjaya comes to Kampilya. When Sanjaya comes to Kampilya, he conveys his message. After conveying his message, and that is the part of the message where Dhritarashtra had sent to Sanjaya, which made Arjuna weak during the battlefield of Kurukshetra before the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Where Dhritarashtra had told, my dear Pandavas, you are good people. My sons are evil people. You are conditioned to live in the forest. Your birth was in the forest. You grew up in the forest. You went back to the forest. Again you went to the forest for 12-year vanvas. My son is conditioned to live in the palace. So therefore I prefer you do not start this battle. Live in the forest. Live in Dwarka. Live by begging, but do not have this war because it is not good. The original idea of perverted non-violence was planted here. And the effect of that, it did not happen immediately. That impact of Dhritarashtra's saying happened to Arjuna in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita and the beginning of the second chapter, where Arjuna did tell Krishna, Bhaikshamapyam loke, Krishna, I am willing to live by begging. See, when good people are forced and made to feel guilty about their rights, right, they fall for it. Only because there was Krishna who basically eliminated this mindset from the Pandavas. He said you should be good. At the same time, you should not give up justice for yourself and for the others. And therefore Arjuna was ready to fight as his original normal condition of being a warrior, to fight for the higher cause. So Sanjaya, when he came back to Hastinapur, what did he say to Dhritarashtra? He said, what I saw there, my dear brother, my dear teacher, my dear master, is unfathomable. The Pandavas and the the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna's connection is so deep. He said, I saw something which was not even allowed to the other Pandavas, even Abhimanyu was not allowed. I saw Krishna, just having a nap, a small rest. And the feet of Sri Krishna was on the lap of Arjuna. And Arjuna's feet, imagine Arjuna's one feet was in the lap of Draupadi. And what fascinated Sanjay was one of the feet was in the lap of Satyabhama, like a mother. She's the Bhumi Devi. Alright, they were discussing deep topics. He said, my dear Dhritarashtra, my dear Kurus, please stop thinking of winning against the Pandavas. It is impossible. Then he describes the Arjuna's chariot, Arjuna's preparedness, Arjuna's flag, Arjuna's horses. He says, Arjuna's chariot, my dear Dhritarashtra, it is so special that the horses, if one of the horses fall off, they get tired, the new horses automatically comes there. Arjuna's quiver is inexhaustible. Other warriors, if you read in the Mahabharata, whether it is Karna, whether it is Duryodhan, whoever it is, when they were fighting, there was a support system. There were bullock carts full of arrows and weapons to supply to the Kurus. In one sense, it is very primitive. And the sophistication of the Pandavas, especially Arjuna's chariot, was so sophisticated. The speed of the chariot, once you shoot an arrow, right? So the arrow moves faster than the chariot. But when Arjuna would shoot the arrows, before the arrow would reach the target, Arjuna's chariot would be ahead of it. Like when a primitive country, their warriors study the weapons of the sophisticated nation, it is simply fascinating and miracle only. Right? I visited one place, the army's place. I've seen certain sophisticated weapons. Right? So these sophisticated weapons, their speed, it is like a miracle only, and that was the speciality of the Pandavas. And Sanjay explains this, that Arjuna's flag, he explains Arjuna's flag, the pole of the flag. The flag itself was not made by anybody, not that you just take a pole and then you put the flag. That flag was made by Vishwakarma. And the flag was designed not what we see. It had a multiple designs. The flag did not have only Hanumanji there. The flag had many deities. The small deities and the big deities and devatas. The height of the flag would go up to 7 to 8 miles up. And the shadow from the flag would cover 1 yojana, almost like 8 miles. One may say these are all fantastic story. The reason why Vyasadeva is speaking about this thing, to prove the most sophisticated weapons of the Pandavas. Arjuna's quiver, it would never exhaust. Arjuna never had a support system of providing bullock carts with weapons because his quiver was inexhaustible. Karna does complain about Arjuna's inexhaustible quiver. And the speciality of that flag was, that flag basically, when we would move forward, now Krishna is driving the chariot, chariot is special, Agnidev is given. When the chariot is moving forward, certainly you are fighting not in an open field. Yes, there is an open field, but the battlefield was covering hundreds of miles. So Vyasadeva explains the flag of Arjuna would not be brought down even if there is a mountain or trees would come back. The flag would become subtle. Like how man, buddhi, ahankar can enter anywhere. Our earth, water, fire, air, ether, our physical body cannot enter. If somebody closes the door, the body cannot enter. Because millions of Bombayites, Delhiites, Kolkataites, and then Hyderabadites, many couldn't afford the ticket, but the mind was there to go and see the mess of the messy. Right? What a colonized people we are. Madness. Right? Yes, he is a great person, humble person, but the mindset, right? Arjuna, on the other hand, he did not create fans, he created heroes like him. We discussed about Uttara Kumar. So this Arjuna had this inexhaustible quiver. The flag would actually subtly disappear. You would see it, but nothing could obstruct it. And of course, Hanumanji was there on the flag. And the string on the Gandiva bow. If the string breaks for the warrior, his bow breaks, it is not very easy to tie. It takes time. Before you could tie the string, you are killed. Now, Arjuna's bow had more than 100 strings. There was a situation where Karna was breaking the strings of Arjuna, and before Karna could release the second arrow, Arjuna would tie the string. So, marvel is not about breaking. The marvel was how Arjuna so fast he could tie the string and then start shooting. Imagine when you have all the resources, plus more than anything else, Sri Krishna is on the chariot of Arjuna. Sanjaya told this to Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya told this to Duryodhan. Sanjaya told this to Bhishma. Again, Dhritarashtra, surprisingly, again he glorifies Arjuna. He said, who in the world can stand Arjuna's fury? It is impossible. Nobody can stand his fury. He has the power to finish the battle within few hours, within a day. So please, my dear son, compromise with the Pandavas. But Duryodhan was so hell-bent, he would not agree to the proposal of adjusting, compromising, submitting to the realities. After all that speech given by Sanjaya, it was like entering into the deaf ear. Then eventually, Sri Krishna decided to come to Hastinapur as the peacemaker. The description of Krishna coming as a peacemaker on behalf of the Pandavas, it is so beautifully described by Vyasadeva. Right? It is full of devotion. It is full of strategy building also. What did Krishna do? As he was passing from Kampilya to Hastinapur, he would make a point. It was the original Ratha Yatra. Like there was Ratha Yatra during the Ram temple building. It was the original Ratha Yatra. Sri Krishna would stop place to place. Why would he stop? Because to make the position of the people favorable to the Pandavas. So by developing that favorable attitude among the Pandavas, because it is not only your battle, it is not only your war, it is not only your strategy, but the favorable atmosphere of the people, what does it do? It creates energy. It's like a wind supporting your endeavor. And that was masterstroke. Krishna played it so nicely, and he came to Hastinapur. After coming to Hastinapur, what does Krishna do? Krishna, in the presence of all the Kauravas, glorifies Arjuna, Arjuna's valor, Arjuna's capacity, Arjuna's prowess, Arjuna's ability. Right? He said, it's a stupidity on your part to fight Arjuna, because he is unstoppable. Nobody can stop him. No devatas can stop him. Right? Of course, Krishna did many other things. Peace message itself is a 3 to 5 session course. But Krishna speaking all this to the Kurus did not change their mindset. They were hell bent upon getting destroyed. Right? That is the sad part, that even the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, was there. Giving logic, giving common sense, giving historical reality, giving opportunities to change. Like Duryodhan, if you see, he was an aggressor, Atatayi. He tried to molest, he tried to kidnap, he tried to burn, he looted the property, he tried to poison, right? He tried to attack when the Pandavas were in the forest. So basically, he had broken all the laws, but still, because he was part of the Kuru family, Krishna decided, let me give him a chance to rectify. The whole conversation of peace message is very profound, but we will focus on Arjuna. So even after making him hear the greatness of Arjuna, the Kurus did not agree to the proposals of Sri Krishna. In fact, Duryodhan tried to bind Krishna. Binding certainly would not work, because what Duryodhan is trying to do, Duryodhan was trying to bind a fire in the cotton swab. Fire cannot, cotton cannot hold the fire, it can burn. Right? God, Krishna is limitless. He can be only bound by love and affection. He is infinite. And how can you bind the infinite with a small rope? Imagine what kind of politician Duryodhan is. He comes and takes resources from Krishna. For him, there is no such thing as gratitude. Politicians by nature, especially for the countries which are not their country, there is no friendship. There is only convenience. If the king, the prime minister, president do not realize this, right, that oh, they are my friends. No, no country is a friend. It is simply a convenience. And Duryodhan represents that. He came asking from Krishna. Krishna gave him the army, but here Duryodhan wants to bind Krishna. Of course, it did not work. All the good advice given by Krishna, chastisement, threat, glorifying the Pandavas, glorifying Arjuna, did not work. What does he do? Of course, meeting Kurus, before that Krishna had come to Kunti Devi. And this lady, she has affection for her children, but she has confidence in her children. I was asking this question to some of our school children. What is the greatest compliment? The compliment coming from the parents, I love you or I trust you. Right? I love you is simply depending upon them. It is sympathizing. It gives good feeling. But if they love but they do not trust you, they don't trust not that it is their fault alone, they don't trust because we are not upgrading our competency or credibility. The day when they say, okay, I trust you, that is the greatest compliment children can receive. And Kunti Devi, she is in separation of the Pandavas. But still, when she speaks to Sri Krishna, this is before the peace message. What does she do? She speaks about everybody, but she also speaks about Arjuna. She said, my dear Krishna, you know what? What I see in Arjuna, Now this is not blind affection. These are factual figures. She told, my dear Krishna, when I see Arjun, it is not that Arjuna has 1,000 hands. He has only 2 hands. But the way he battles, the dexterity, the speed, the way he moves his hands, she said, even though he has 2 hands, but he fights as if he has 1,000 hands. The mother's glory of her son, which is based on factual reality, is undefeatable. Then Krishna comes to Hastinapur. Then Krishna speaks, spends time, speaks about peace message fails. Sri Krishna does not stop there also. What does he do? He comes to Karna. Right? Imagine from the journey of becoming a peacemaker on behalf of the Pandavas until he meets Karna, the sincerity of Sri Krishna, who knows the truth in and out, right? And therefore Arjuna is Krishna's devotee. Imagine being a god and you know everything and you still work as if my endeavor will change them. Because if you know everything, you become complacent. If you know everything about everybody, the compassion, endeavor to do something good for them doesn't exist only. This contradiction of all-knowing God working hard for making them do something which is exactly against what he knows. Please try to understand this. इसीलिए तो अवतार है, right? He's all-knowing as the Supreme Bhagavan, but all endeavoring to change, right? In fact, Draupadi stopped Krishna. I have to little divert here. Draupadi stopped Krishna when Krishna decided to come as a peacemaker. She got to know everything what was happening inside in the meeting hall, where the Pandavas were trying to adjust and compromise. Draupadi said, Krishna, what is this? You promised me, right? If the husbands cannot do, I will take my old father, I will take my brothers, I will take my children and march over the Kurus and give justice to myself and to my children. This is not desirable, right? And how Sri Krishna pacifies Draupadi. It is marvelous. You will understand the concept of freedom for the living entity. Karma is not frozen. This is the story you can understand. Karma is not frozen, right? A living entity has the opportunity, even though it is so conditioned, still the opportunity is given by the principle of Ishvara. Therefore, karma is very fluid. Yes, there is an influence of karma, but it is not binding, right? So then Sri Krishna basically comes to Karna. Why is he coming to Karna? Because trying to tell him something, my dear Karna, you know who you are. Of course he knew. He said, you can stop this war if you choose to, if you accept Hastinapur's crown, become the king of Hastinapur, I will convince the Pandavas. You be the king. Duryodhan should be happy because he is your friend. So in this way, you being the king is beneficial to the Kurus and the Pandavas. Duryodhan being is your friend, he will not object. You being the elder brother of the Pandavas, they will not object. The war will stop. Right? This is called as cultivating the frozen karma. Karna was good at cultivating the karma cycle into frozen one. Krishna's theory is, even if your karma is frozen, you can melt it by the power of yoga, the power of sankalpa. the power of your efforts with the help of the divine. So Krishna gave such a beautiful proposal to Karna, but Karna was suicidal, right? He said, my dear Krishna, this will not happen, because if you give me the kingdom, I will give it to Duryodhana. But I know the destiny of this battle. And he speaks about the dreams what he saw. Then he speaks to Krishna. He said, my dear Krishna, what can I say? This battle where you are fighting, where Arjuna is fighting, he said, Arjuna's Gandiva is like that fire spoon in the yajna. The entire Kurukshetra is the yajna kunda. And Arjuna's Gandiva is like that spoon which we offer oblations. Swaha, oil and grains, right? And what is the oblation? What is the offering? The entire army is the offering in the Kurukshetra Yajna, and the Yajna spoon which is instrumental in putting in that fire is Arjuna's Gandiv. And what are the mantras here? Because in the Yajna you have to chant the mantra. The mantras are all the divine weapons of Arjuna. And therefore Krishna, when you are the Ritvij, when Arjuna is the performer of Yajna, I see very clear the destiny of the Kurus. I see Duryodhan going to the southern direction covered with the petha, which is the pagadi, which is a color which is like red color, which indicating that his body is taken towards the southern direction to Yamaraj. After knowing all these things, what happened? Karna did not change his stand. Sri Krishna can do anything and everything, but never interferes into the choices made by the living entity. And therefore, does God fail? Of course he fails when it is connected to the living entities. Krishna's mission, from the very purpose, yes, the ultimate purpose is fulfilled. He will establish Dharma by any means. But he wanted to establish Dharma by the means of peace. He wanted to give all the space to the peace. He wanted to decorate peace on the altar of life. He told Duryodhan that, my dear Duryodhan, I worship ahimsa. हम अहिंसा के पुजारी है. But the problem is, we worship ahimsa, but we are prepared for himsa also. Krishna doesn't stop there, right? When all the messages, Kunti went on her own. She did not go on behalf of Krishna. On her own she went to Karna, tried to convey, communicate, but he would not budge. He would not change. He had frozen his karma. Because he had no yoga, he had only had ambitions. योग के साथ वो कभी जुड़ नहीं पाया. If he was connected to yoga, he was able to integrate everything, the conflict, the reversal, the challenges, the opportunities, and the dynamics of, taking the kingdom. Yes, let the world, some of the world condemn him. Oh God, he changed his side. But the true people would always glorify what a war averted. But he would not do that. Therefore, Krishna went back. Broken hearted that peace was not achieved, but not at the cost of not doing what he's supposed to do. Right? The preparation started. The Pandavas collected 7 Akshoyini Sainya. The Kauravas collected 11 Akshoyini Sainya. There also, the beauty of the Pandavas, when the Pandavas left from Hastinapur, ripped off, everything was taken away, as if they were non-existent. We can see from a political connection also so many things, right? But they were relentless. All the kings who had supported the Pandavas during Rajasuya sacrifice, nobody came to meet the Pandavas. Forget about others. Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Bhishma Dev, nobody came. Only people who came to meet Pandavas in their bad time was certainly Vidura. Sri Krishna came 2-3 times. Daumya Rishi was always there with the Pandavas, and Pandavas met with so many people. They were trying to collect the resources. That was Arjuna's preparation time, where he went to heavenly planets, going to heavenly planets, collecting so much of resources, coming back. He was well prepared. Pleased Lord Shiva, pleased Kubera, pleased Indra, you name, all the devatas were pleased. He comes back, and on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when the war is about to begin, what was going in Arjuna's mind? Therefore, understanding Bhagavad Gita, some very nice Vaishnava said, a Sri Vaishnava, he said Bhagavad Gita's original commentary is Mahabharata. And actually it is the reality. When you study the Bhagavad Gita in connection to Mahabharata, it just opens up. Right? Because Bhagavad Gita, nowadays what has it become? It has become a book of a philosophy, wherein people debate about whether it supports this philosophy, supports that philosophy. Right? That has become more prominent discussion than the discussion about what was the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to make someone who has given up action, right? Arjuna wanted to give up action, and where did this spring from? Arjuna is well prepared, everything is prepared, he is ready to fight. On the battle of Kurukshetra, when he saw the very question Arjuna asked to Krishna, there are 3 lamentations in the Bhagavad Gita first chapter. It is called as Arjuna Vishada Yoga. What are the 3 lamentations? One is Dhritarashtra's lamentation, one is Duryodhana's lamentation, and one is Arjuna's lamentation. And therefore Prabhupada interestingly calls it as observing the army. What does observation do? Observation gives rise to emotions. Right? When people were not able to observe in Kolkata, because Bengal in India is known for football, like Bombay is known for cricket. Right? When they were not able to see the person whom they wanted to see, paying so much of money, one stupid fellow, emotions, right? He had a marriage day. You're supposed to attend evening marriage or daytime, I don't know when. But he said, Messi to ek hi baar aayega. संस्कार को छोड़ के राइट एक इवेंट पे चला गया, and he was so frustrated because he walked away within 10 minutes. What happened? The observation did not happen, and therefore the entire stadium was broken. And those who got to see him, those who felt I saw, they said, wow, it was worth all our endeavor. Anything you see in this world, it gives rise to emotion. A small baby in the local train or in the train, when she sees, the person who is carrying some toys, what does happen? She starts jumping. She wants it. He wants it. So the emotion caused by observing does not go away. So Dhritarashtra observed through Sanjay, asking what happened after being assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Redundant question. But that question had a deep psychological impact, which Sanjay knew. Because Dhritarashtra wanted that seed which he had planted in the Pandavas, live by begging but do not fight with my sons, because they will not change, history will not forgive you. At least if you continue to beg in Dwarka, Don't beg in Hastinapur because that will cause lot of revolution amongst people. They'll say, hey, Pandavas are begging, you're doing injustice to them. Therefore, beg in Dwarka. So that was slowly coming to reality in the heart of Arjuna. Right? So Dhritarashtra's observation, he was hoping that this Kurukshetra, will impact the Pandavas in such a way that they will withdraw from fighting. अरे जाने दो क्यों युद्ध करने का. They were also thinking, he was also thinking, there was fear also, that if this war happens, it will also impact the Pandavas positively and the victory of the Pandavas is guaranteed. That was his lamentation. He expresses, but he imagines that something good will happen without endeavour. He doesn't want to do endeavour. His lamentation is in the mode of ignorance, no action. Duryodhana's lamentation, it is, he cannot express his vulnerability. He cannot do that. Why he cannot express his vulnerability? Because he feels that if I express my vulnerability, people will misuse it. They'll exploit it. He doesn't have the heart of showing his vulnerability, and therefore he knew very clearly Drona is not going to kill the Pandavas. Bhishma is not going to kill the Pandavas. Karna is not fighting for first 10 days, means however long Bhishma lives, right? And some commentators write that Duryodhana knew the connection of the Pandavas and Karna. He knew that except Arjuna, Karna is not going to kill any other Pandavas. So Duryodhana was surrounded by those leaders. They were fighting exactly opposite of what Duryodhana wanted, the elimination of the Pandavas. So even though he had a big army, he knew the outcome. Right? Therefore, let me try on my own way, depending on whoever it is, try to kill the Pandavas. तो रजोगुण से भरा हुआ उसका lamentation. And here comes the Arjuna, because Bhagavad Gita was not spoken to Dhritarashtra. Bhagavad Gita was not spoken to Duryodhana. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to a person who was willing, who was begging, who was desperately requesting Krishna to speak. When we see Arjuna's lamentation, the very question what Arjuna asked, it is as redundant question as the question of Dhritarashtra. What did Dhritarashtra say? He said, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre samaveta yayutsava. Mamaka Pandavasya kim kurvata Sanjay. What did my son and the sons of Pandu do? And what does Arjuna say? Senayor ubayor madhye ratam stapayam achyuta. Yavad etad niriksham yuddhu kaman avastitam. Arjuna is telling to Krishna, and that is the place Krishna must have caught. He said, hey Krishna, I want to see who has assembled, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Yavad etad niriksham, I want to see all of them. मैं देखना चाहता हूं कौन कौन आया हुआ है. Because Yudhishthira Maharaj had no confusion about Bhishma, Drona, Kripa being active warriors on behalf of the Kurus. But Arjuna still had this hope. He was deeply respectful of his teacher, Dronacharya, his Kula Guru, and Bhishma Dev. When Yudhishthira Maharaj discussed with Bhima one day, when they were in the forest, when Bhima was very angry, he said, what the hell we are here, we have to go and fight them out, let us not follow this whole 13 years of rule. That time Yudhishthira said, hey my dear brother, he said, I am totally with you in regards to your emotions, but I am not with you in regards to our preparation. We cannot go and attack them because they are protected by Bhishma, Drona. They will fight us. They will not stand neutral. So Bhima knew this. Yudhishthira Maharaj knew this. But Arjuna knew, but he was blinded because of his good heart, his affectionate heart. He had this expectation, assumptions that they will not fight me. They will not do this. If not on our side, at least they will stay neutral. Therefore, when Arjuna saw these personalities on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, because Krishna is smart, Krishna could have taken the chariot in front of Bhurishrava. He could have taken the chariot in front of Dushasan. He could have taken anywhere. But he brought the chariot close to Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and Arjuna broke down. Right? He broke down, he became extremely weak, but to hide his weakness, he became a philosopher. Right? Asking Krishna, you don't kill your uncles, grandparents, teachers. Right? You must have killed the Rakshasas, my dear Krishna, but this is very precarious. He gave all logic, proper logic Arjuna was giving to Krishna in regards to the reason what Arjuna is giving to Krishna, why he should not fight. They are very bona fide reasons. But sometimes even though you have a right reason not to fight, still you are supposed to fight because there are some higher reasons. There are inevitable realities. That inevitable realities Arjuna was not willing to accept. Right? He was denying about them. He brought Dharma Shastra, he brought Sanskaras, he brought the principle of war brings limitless pain to the people. Women will be unprotected, they will be exploited by the unscrupulous men. That will bring forth unwanted children, Varana Sankara, and because of the Varana Sankara, they will not perform the regular Pitri Shraddha to their people. Right? All those arguments Krishna heard from Arjuna. At some point of time, in the conclusion of the first chapter, that great warrior who would become angry if somebody said, keep your Gandiva down. Your Gandiva is valueless. He had a secret vow to kill them. But that very Arjuna, his hand was quivering. His lips were trembling. His mouth became dry. He was not able to hold the chariot. That very Arjuna, just few days ago, he had told Uttar Kumar, hold your ground, because when I string my Gandiva and twang it, it will create such an earthquake. And it did create. Uttar Kumar fell. The horses of Uttar fell down. The horses of the Kurus and the elephant, they passed stool and urine simultaneously. That was the roar Arjuna had. That was the confidence Arjuna had. There was no change. The same Arjuna, but here is keeping the Gandiva down. He almost collapsed on the chariot, saying, Krishna, I will not fight. Again, the beauty here, it was such a master stroke for Arjuna, saying that, Krishna, I want you, not your army. Imagine if Arjuna had asked for the army, right? Krishna, you give me blessings, I want your army, you can join the Kurus, no doubt. Even if he had said, Krishna would still support the Pandavas, right? It was a test of Arjuna. Duryodhana would not even take empty Krishna. He said, I don't want to, feed one person extra, right? So here, Arjuna, what a master stroke Arjuna played by choosing Krishna. In the very first chapter, he went through a psychological breakdown. Therein Prabhupada writes, human being experiences precarious condition. In those precarious condition, what we need more than the resources is the right advice. And the courage to seek that advice is more difficult than having the advice. So Arjuna's vulnerability is not a disease. Arjuna's vulnerability is the strength. Therefore, whoever gave the name, now Arjuna Vishada Yoga is not the name given in the Mahabharata. Some acharyas have given that name. Arjuna Vishada, it should be Roga. It is yoga because his lamentation is not like Dhritarashtra. His lamentation is not like Duryodhana. His lamentation has a courage. The courage to expose himself to Krishna. And what does Arjuna say? My dear Krishna, after expressing, I will live by begging, even if they attack me with all the weapons upraised, I will not fight them. Itna, this is this disease of the Karunya. See, this is Karunya is not a magnanimous quality when it comes to Dharma. It became a roga. Krishna said, this is murcha. This is klaibyam. Right? Where did this all contamination came to, my dear Arjuna? And then what did Lord do? When Arjuna desperately begged, I need to hear. I will surrender my intelligence, not fight immediately. I'll surrender my intelligence. And then next 40 minutes, Sri Krishna spoke to Arjuna, the master class, spontaneously speaking the Bhagavad Gita. It was a friendly call to another friend, taking a compassionate position without getting disturbed. Oh my God, how can Arjuna do this at the last moment? No. As a teacher, Krishna was practicing Nishkama Karma. With Arjuna, without Arjuna, Dharma has to be established. But Arjuna is willing to hear. There is no book in the world, there is no book in the Grantha which is spoken on the battlefield at the same time extremely profound in every perspective, whether it is living life or whether it is deep adhyatma, whether it is producing great results or completely depending upon God. It harmonizes so many apparent contradiction, not because of the life itself, because the contradiction within our own mind. Krishna seamlessly, does that so wonderfully to Arjuna, right? Speaking all yogas, the theory of karma, the time factor, swadharma, loka sangraha, the three modes of material nature, everything the Lord speaks. And after speaking all that, he has the courage to say, Arjun, now choose whatever you want to do. Yathechasi tata kuru. If you have not understood, I will speak again. If you have the fear of the consequences of your duties, your inadequacies, your limitations, don't worry. I will take responsibility of that. In this way, Arjuna did not just hear, he raised so many questions and ultimately concluded, my dear Krishna, nasto moha smritir labdva tat prasadad mayachyuta. He said, Krishna, all my ignorance has been eliminated. Smritir labdva tat prasadad mayachyuta, by your grace. Therefore, Arjuna is smart in choosing Krishna. Arjuna is smart in requesting Krishna to speak him knowledge. Krishna is fascinating not to be angry and upset when Arjuna was saying that I will not fight and live by begging, and speaking to Arjuna when Arjuna wanted, and taking through the entire process of. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita is not a law book. It's not a rule book. It is not a rule book created by human beings for a relative world. Like, okay, this country follow this rule, this religion follow this rule. The laws of Bhagavad Gita are actually universal. One cannot show anything which is not universally applicable, not because we are followers of Krishna. It can be proven in so many ways, right? It is logically driven. It is life driven. It is eternal laws driven. Bhagavad Gita is more important than the Krishna here. Right? If you understand Krishna's law, Prakriti's law, it becomes easier to develop affection to Ishvara, to Bhagavan, to Sri Krishna. And therefore Arjuna had complete conviction in regards to what he has to do. But even after having that conviction, it was not easy for him to immediately implement, because by nature Arjuna was sensitive. It took 10 days. So Krishna doesn't expect that you understand Bhagavad Gita and immediately implement. It takes time, and Krishna was okay with that. And therefore these two friends, Krishna and Arjuna, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra is eternal sign of endeavoring living entity with circumstantial upheavals, but supported by the great philosopher, teacher, strategist, the devotee's greatest heart, Sri Krishna. Therefore, yatra yogeshwaro Krishna, yatra partha dhanurdhara, tatra Sri Vijay Dhruva nitir matir mama. Wherever there is Krishna, wherever there is Arjuna. Sanjay told this to Dhritarashtra again. He said, my dear brother, you forget. My dear master, you forget. Wherever there is Arjuna and wherever there is Krishna, victory, morality, prosperity and stability is guaranteed. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any questions? We are often oscillating between being Duryodhana and Arjuna. We might be inspired by the values and actions of Arjuna, but often what we may end up doing is more like Duryodhana, exhibiting greed, anger and ego driven action. Should we focus on changing at all once, or is it okay to keep following and eventually get to a point of being like Arjuna always? It feels artificial to simply follow higher values and principles. How to naturally feel inspired to follow the path of Arjuna? Arjuna does not represents no ambitions. Arjuna and Duryodhana, there are only one quality of Duryodhana is what? Consistency in practicing against Bhima. He was very consistent in regards to learning mace fight. That is the one good quality he had. But overall Duryodhana is defined as an evil personification. Not his papi, his papa is a papa purusha. Alright, when we talk about Arjuna, we see Arjuna also represents certain weakness sometimes and certain strength. So in one sense, you don't have to be leaning towards Duryodhana because it is not profitable. Forget about, there is no profit in that. But if we aspire for Arjuna, yes, there are limitations of Arjuna. We can see that. But those limitations does not stop Arjuna from growing. And Arjuna's growth is not at the cost of being ambitious. Having ambition, one should not confuse ambition and greed. Ambition is not greed. Otherwise, why would Krishna tell Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, I am the strength of the strong, I am the intelligence of the intelligent, I am the ability in human being. Why would Krishna tell all these things? He would say, hey, come on, nonsense, what are you doing? Why you have to be so able? Why you are asking for a divine weapons when I am there? Now, Arjuna is not playing the role of a, Babaji living in the mountains. Arjuna is the perfect representation of a human being living in this world, Raja Rishi. Rishi inside, Raja outside, with whatever limitations he had, right? But limitation did not became, place where Arjuna was watering his limitation. He was guarding his limitation and watering his strength, right? So therefore, we don't have to go to Duryodhana. We can fight the limited capacity and move forward. Somebody asked the question about Yuyutsu. Yuyutsu was the Dasi Putra. He chose to fight on behalf of the Pandavas. He was not part of the 100 sons of Kurus, and Yutsu became the only surviving son who became responsible for performing the Shraddha Kriya for the Kauravas. Not much described about him. Somebody asked, reading Mahabharat is connected to, associated with Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha rather than Bhakti Shastra. And considering that our Acharya, they have not directly commented on it, how should a devotee with Bhakti Adhikar properly approach such literature? The mere fact that Prabhupada gave importance to Bhagavad Gita, where does Bhagavad Gita come from? Bhagavad Gita come from Mahabharata only, right? And in the many commentaries, Prabhupada does mention about writing more commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. He talked about writing Ramayana, he talked about writing Mahabharata. Yes, it is not that it is not there, it is there. These literatures, Vyasdev has written, undermining them, any dharmic literature undermining is not correct, right? First of all, we have to understand what is our level. People can read that school textbook. The mere fact is that you are communicating in English, that means you must have studied all the literatures which are not at all beneficial for being a dharmic person, but there is no choice. You are utilizing for your life. If somebody can read Shakespeare, somebody can read science, somebody can read mathematics and learn something from there for artha prapti, so that they can practice devotional life. So nobody argues about the position of Mahabharata compared to Bhagavad. There is no such confusion. Mahabharata is meant for dharma, Bhagavad is meant for bhakti, but there are so many beautiful stories which simply enhances our bhakti understanding and also the understanding in life. So that confusion is not there. Kunti Maharani stayed in Hastinapur during Pandava's exile and during the war. Wouldn't it be safe to stay in Dwarka when Kauravas had tried to harm her in Varanavad previously? Yeah, but now she was protected by Bhishma and Vidura. They would not do that. That is the only time they tried. So they would not do that. And Kunti chose to remind the Kurus, I am here, single lady. So the strategy was very clear. They would not, the purpose was not killing Kunti, even in the first instance. It was to kill the Pandavas. But because she was also there, they said, okay, let us finish her off also. But here she was not a problem. Her sons were a problem. So they would not do that harm. Very clear political smartness. Okay. So I'll stop here. Thank you for your kindness. Next week we'll meet again and discuss the fifth part.